Hello. Um, welcome to this last session of Process Maker. In this last session, what we are going to do is to present, if we can call it like that. I'm going to present some information here, and it's time to talk about REST and the REST architecture. So we are going to explain some details and see all concepts are associated to this part called REST. So I invite you to join us, and we are going to start opening all these topics and discuss about that. So I'm going to start with the first part. The first part is going to be dedicated to the construction of 3 files, and well, have a nice trip for this last session. I wish you the best. Okay, I'm going to open the virtual machine here. I'm going to start opening the virtual machine. If you have problems to hear me, you can ask me, okay? But I think that everyone can hear me right now. So I'm going to continue. So I need to go here, and I need to go to this part. I need to open especially a section here. In this section, I'm going to open a directory, and just for a moment, I'm going to find that directory. Okay, it's this one. It's this one, var html w and html. So it is this one, the file. So what I'm trying to do is to create 2 types of files, because this is going to be used to create our application. In today's sessions, we are going to learn how to create our application using the REST architecture, and as a backend language, I'm going to use PHP. Okay, so I'm going to dedicate 5 exercises to develop this part of using this type of files. Okay, so I'm going to open this, and I'm going to create our first file, and it is going to be this one. It's going to be header HTML. Okay, and I need to include, well, I'm going to construct the files, so let me just introduce all this code. Yeah, this file, this session is, I call it the copy paste code session, okay, because you're going to find very extensive codes, and I'm not going to start writing all of them, because we are talking about 70 lines of code in some occasions. So the best thing that we can do is just obtain the code and copy it. So I'm going to make that and then explain what lies behind. So in this case, I'm going to create 3 files. The first one is going to be this header, and I'm going to save it. Then I'm going to create another file. And it is going to be this one. And then I'm going to open this and get it. Okay, I included this code for header HTML. Now I'm creating footer HTML, and I'm going to add some code. So both files are going to help me for the design, because they contain as evidence, it's self-evident here, HTML code. So we need both files to construct our application. So I'm going to introduce that code here. And save it so I have that type of code. Then I'm going to create another file. Okay, so just a moment, I'm going to bring here some code and then explain you what lies behind each code that you can see here. So let me introduce this code. And it's going to be this one. Okay, so I am introducing these three codes. The first one is going to be header. And as you can see, this is in an HTML code. It is going to make reference to some tags for design. And there you have, you are going to have the division, the class panel, and so on. So you have a lot of information here. Also the tags of the titles, the tags associated to the description of the file. And there you have it. This is the tags associated, if you can call it, to this type of work. Okay? Well, footer is going to be the closure, if we can call it like that. It is the closure for that file, for the header file. But we talk just about designs, so we use some tags here, and by using these tags, I'm going to make the opening, this opening, and then I'm going to close that. So I'm going to bring both sections here in a file, and then you are going to see here index. Index is going to be like the main page for my application. And if you can see here, you have this introduction of header.html and footer HTML here. So we have both of them. And here you're going to find all of this. This is a tag called form, okay? And when I introduce information, you have the login.php. This is the action. Then you have division, okay, division, and so on. So each one of these tags of division is going to represent a field. So that's exactly what we are doing. Within the boundaries of the form, you can call it like that, I'm going to introduce all these fields. And these fields are going to have some inputs in each one of them. So when I collect all this information, I'm going to get access to some of the REST elements. I'm not talking about REST right now. I'm talking about the building blocks of my application. So if I go here, if I move here and go to the local host here, because actually in this section, in the local host, is where we are hosting this application, you are going to find that this form actually is the index.php. And that's exactly what you find here. You have the header, and then you have the index here. This is the index with all this code. Okay, so you have the server URL, the workspace name, the client ID, the client secret, the username, the password, and so on. So this is going to be moved, if we can call it like that, because that's the file. The file has content and has to be exhibited. So therefore, I'm going to host this content in a file. Let me show you here. But this is going to depend also on the configurations that you have. Okay, so if I find here, I'm going to find this file, and there you have. This is the index.php, and well, that's you can see. Do you have any question for this? Is everything clear? These are just the preliminary blocks, the building blocks. The next part is going to be very interesting because that one is the core of the application. Okay, so by now I'm going to leave you with this lab. Can we do this lab, please? Well, as usual, you know that I ask you all the time to do the lab. So I need you to do this lab in university. Okay. I need you to go here to the developer course. Okay. And in here, we are going to do the first lab. And it is going to be this one. This one, lab preliminary arrangements. Can we do this lab? Okay, can we do this lab? Hello? Hello? Okay. Okay, so 15 minutes for this lab. 15 minutes, okay? See you in 15 minutes. Hello? How was the lab? Okay. I think that we can continue, isn't it? Are you ready to continue? Okay. Now, this part is very, very important. Okay, because you can forget the rest of the rest of the labs, but this is very critical because everything is going to be around this design of this file. Well, actually, yeah, around this file, and then we are going to show you how it works, this part of using the REST architecture. So for that reason, I'm going to start now with something here. I'm going to click here. Execute rest.php. Okay. And in this file, I'm going to introduce this code. I'm going to introduce some code. Just bear me a moment. I'm going to explain what is this code for you. And well, you're going to see that it's extremely critical. But let me design first the code. Let me design first the code, okay? Then we talk about all about the codes that we are using right now. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to introduce this in here. Okay, this is the code. Is the execute rest. How it works. First, I open a PHP tag and I include this function. The function name is going to be execute rest, as you can see here. I'm going to introduce these arguments. URL, the method, and the method in this case is going to be get. Get is the method for reading something. Then I have data here, and it's going to be this empty array, okay? And then the access token. So actually, for executing REST, I'm going to use 4 arguments, okay? And depending on the method that I'm going to use, I might not need data. In the case of reading, I don't need data because I'm going to read data. If I need to post something following the HTTP protocol, if I post something, I'm going to include data. I'm going to create this variable called curl, and I'm going to initiate a session with curl, and it's going to be this URL. Curl means client URL, and this makes possible the use of HTTP protocols, the use of this protocol and its methods to read the information. After that, I can set an option, and this option can be the return for the transfer, okay? So people who are more knowledgeable in this part of PHP, they can handle the information in an easy way. When this happens, I'm going to ask if the access token is different to empty. It means, does it exist? Okay. If the access token exists as we state here, we are going to have this as curset option, okay? And then I'm going to provide the curl session, a method, curl_opt header, and this array. This array is going to contain the access token. Okay, but I am using the bearer schema. Same thing happens with if access token and this is empty. I'm going to use cur and set an option here, and it's going to be curl_opt HTTP header for posting, and then you have this bearer schema. If the method is post, I'm going to set an option here. It's going to be cur and then curl_opt underscore post and then true. Cur set opt is going to be curl here, curl_opt underscore post fields, and then you have http underscore build underscore query, and there you have, this is data. Okay, then you have if method. Another method is put, and put is going to be for editing information. I'm going to make cur underscore set option, curl_opt custom request, and then you have put here. Cur set an option. Again, I use the session of cur client URL, and I say I'm going to post fields, and then I provide this HTTP build query data. Okay, so for each method you are going to find that there is a new way to proceed something. For instance, the method delete is going to require the curl session. Then you have here the curl_opt post fields at all, and then I say in data, okay, I need the data. Then I say cur set opt options, and when I post these fields, it means that I can go here, read that information, and finally delete it. Okay, so people who can know how to handle this information, they are going to, especially the cur set options. So with this knowledge, they can proceed to make the interaction with modifications: post, put, delete, reading, deleting, updating something, just reading, so on. But the main point of this, you require an access token, because if I'm going to make the request for JSON, because we sent a JSON request through the architecture of REST, I need an access token. And actually, this file that you can see here is going to provide me that associated with the methods, depending on the possibilities that we want to transition in here. Finally, when I go throughout all the options, I'm going to say cur response here, and I'm going to execute this session of client URL. Then you have here the decoded here, and the JSON decode is going to make a JSON file converted into an array. So that's something that we can find here. I am using the cur response, that is the execution of cur, and then I'm going to decode it. It means that the answer is going to be a JSON, and I need to convert it into array. And JSON decode, this function is going to do that. Then I close the session of cur. Now in this last part, I'm going to ask, is set decoded error? Is there an error here? If you have an error, you are going to find this message: error during cur request, decoded error, message die, else return decoded. Okay? Okay, I think that is the last part of using this type of file. Do you understand this file? I think that the idea of the file is very well understood. Yeah, you are going to see that this file is going to be extensively used in the upcoming parts of this session. Okay, now I'm going to make a new file, and this one is going to be logging PHP. And I'm going to enter here and enter some codes. Just bear me a moment. I'm going to enter some code there. So I'm adding this file. Now let me remind you, in the index, I have here a form and it says action login. When I introduce all of these things, it means all the fields here, the server URL, the workspace name, the client ID, and so on. So I'm going to be routed to the login.php. And actually, this is the next file. So I'm going to go over this file and I'm going to ask here if empty post, posted means that global variable that associates all the information that we have posted in the index, if you remember, in that form. If it is empty, it's going to send me to index. Okay? The form, this one. This is the index. If this is empty, it's going to return you to the same form, index form. Okay? And in here, I'm going to enter this header location index PHP if post is empty. I'm going to require the execute rest this file, and this is going to allow me to read information, okay, to interact with process maker services and the use of the REST architecture. Now I'm going to open this function and it says function get access token empty. I open these curly brackets and I say params array. Grant type is going to be password. Scope is going to be this asterisk that means all the services. Client ID is going to depend on what I enter in the index. Okay, the same for client secret. Username and password are going to follow the same logic. The four are going to depend on what I introduce in the index. It means in the form. Then I say here, URL is going to be constructed by post URL / post workspace above token. this part token. This is the complete URL to find our token. Okay? Then I say data, execute REST. I'm going to execute REST. It means this file, this function, execute REST, and it's going to be URL. Okay? Then is post, this one. This is a method, post. Okay? I'm going to use that post, use the URL. The URL is going to be this one for the token because I am going directly to the token. Then I'm going to introduce this method for writing, post, and then I'm going to introduce these parameters as a way to send, to post them. Then I say return data and I need the access token. So with this, I'm going to provide the cur. Okay, here I'm going to use the post and then the parameters. The URL, the post method, this one, and then the parameters. Okay, so I'm introducing this. Okay, and from here with this execution, I'm going to obtain a token. And the token, remember, token is extremely important because with that I'm going to get access to a service in Process Maker to obtain some data and then treat it in our application. Then I say, I obtain my token. Session start, session URL. These are global variables with uppercase letters. These are global variables. I say URL is going to be post URL. Session WS is going to be post workspace. Then session access token is going to be equal to the function that we have here, get access token. Then the header is going to be location list PHP. I'm going to be routed to list PHP. And actually, this is the file that we are going to create, the list PHP. Until now, I just created the construction here for obtaining the token. The token, we sent it in a bearer schema. If there are people who are more knowledgeable in this part of the schema, okay, the schema, I mean, okay, people who are more knowledgeable in this part of using the bearer schema and the use of Postman and how to send JSON requests. So they are going to understand what type of work I'm doing here. So let's begin. I'm going to introduce here another file, and it's going to be list PHP. And I'm going to open with Gedit, and I'm going to copy and paste code as typical, okay? Going to paste it this, and there you have. In here you have PHP, then session start, then empty session. The header is this one, location index PHP. Okay, if my session is empty, it's going to send me again to the form here. Now I say require once execute rest.php, this file. And then I say URL, session, URL, API 1.0, session WS, then cases. This is actually an endpoint. It is a URL where I am going to get access to some information. And in this case, I want to get access to the cases. The case list is going to store the information of the execution of REST, where we obtain this URL. This URL contains the cases. We want to read that information. My excuses, okay? And then I am not going to post anything. That's why this array is empty. Then I say session access token, and I'm going to obtain this access token here. I'm going to save it, okay? And there you have it. I say here, tag of the, I'm going to include the header HTML, and I'm going to close it with the footer HTML. I open this division h3 inbox, then I say count case list, it means what I obtain here. Then I say table, table hover, table border, and I say table head. And I'm going to construct the table based on some tags that I find here. All of these are going to be headers. Number, case number, process, task, send by, due date, priority, and so on. Then I obtain this PHP and I make this for each statement. The case list is going to provide me a multi-dimensional array, and each array represents a case. That's why I use this iteration. Okay, and then I'm going to organize everything as you can see here to obtain the information. And finally, I close the label and I close everything. I am going to save it. Let's explore a little bit that. I'm going to open here something very important. I'm going to see if the list is working. This is very, as I said, I'm going to go back here because I need to get some information. I'm going to tell you where. I need to get information to the OAuth file, if you remember. So I'm going to move backwards and see my client ID and my client secret. And actually, that's why we have done this type of authentication, because we are going to play with that. Okay. So this is going to be process maker. Okay. Sys workflow. Then N. Neoclassic. Auth2. Applications. I'm going to open this. And there you have. But I'm going to use whatever, okay? So I'm going to use whatever client ID that I have, okay? Because it's going to be the same. I'm going to contact some services. So I'm going to use this one. And in localhost, I'm going to introduce them here. And based on the construction that we have done here, I should have the list opened, I should receive the list. The application should display to me the list of cases based on the construction that I have followed until now. So I'm going to see that, I'm going to see the evidence. So just a moment, I'm going to move again. And I'm going to see the cases that I have, because I need a case, okay? I need cases to open, so I'm moving home. Okay, no case at all, so I'm going to create a new one. And it's going to be this one, vendor registration process, okay? Let's begin a case. And the company name is going to be Hegel Dialectics. The email is going to be dialectics@hegel.com. And the business address is going to be Avenue Liberty, okay, number 77, and it's going to be a retailer. I'm going to submit the details, and what I have here is a case, so I should see that case in my application. So I'm going to introduce the details here. It is going to be this one. Oh, it says error current request. Let me move backwards. I'm going to check if I have a problem here. Just a moment. Let me see the information that I have here, okay? And this is order 020 629 629. Okay. And the password is going to be admin. Okay, it says error logging pull request. So I'm going to check the files associated to that, okay? So I'm going to check that. Okay, everything seems okay here. Just a moment, please. Okay, let me see. It says that our put is not working yet, so let me see that. Maybe I can use another types of client URL. So I'm going to check that possibility also. Let me see. I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use this one. Okay, let's log in. And there we have. It was just a game of the client ID and the client secret. I'm not going to use this one, okay? I'm going to erase it. I'm going to use this login. And there you have. I have the case that I have created in my server, and now it is in my application, okay? If I click on open, I'm not going to find anything because we haven't constructed at all the Dynaphone, okay? So I move backwards. Let's do the lab. Please go back here to Process Maker Developer, and you need to continue with this lab with the second one. This one, getting a user's inbox case list. You are going to have 15 minutes, okay? Are you there? 15 minutes for this lab. Hello? Okay, so we can do that lab 15 minutes. Okay, in 15 minutes. Hello? Hi? Hello? Okay. Can I continue with the next part? Okay, so I'm going to continue with the next part. But this is actually a very short in execution because it's going to be very sure that the file that I'm going to enter here, but it's one of the first explanations, okay? You know that we are designing we're designing an application and we need to make it fully completed. So that's why that I'm going to introduce now another thing, and it's going to be a new file. This file actually is going to be Dynaform PHP. So I'm going to move it here and re-enter my credentials. And in here, I'm going to enter a new file. Dynaform.php. And I'm going to introduce that. So I'm going to introduce that file. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the code. I'm going to copy this. Okay, okay. I'm going to paste this very long code. And by doing that, I'm going to see what happens here. So my application is this one. And let's see, I'm going to open it. And there you have, the Dynaform has displayed all these fields. But this construction is not very simple because we have to add some values, we need to add some configurations and so on. So that's the file that we are going to talk today. I'm going to move here. And this one is the Dynaform. It says, okay, PHP, then session start, this one. Then I say is null, and then I say session access token. If the access token of my session is empty, I'm going to move again to the forming index. Then I say require once, and then I say execute rest.php. Actually, this file is going to insist with this, okay? And I say here URL is going to be, I'm going to construct our first URL, and this is going to point to the part of the steps in a task. After doing that, I'm going to enter here and execute rest and save it in this variable. So we have the URL, and this URL goes to steps. I'm going to read that information. I don't need to post anything, so my array is empty. And I'm going to send this token of the session. I'm going to use another URL, and actually this is another endpoint. And it's going to take the first step, the UID of the object, step UID object, and I say Dynaform equal to execute rest. Then I say URL get is going to be reading. The array is empty, so I'm going to read the information for my Dynaform. So how it works? This is a mix of PHP and HTML. You're going to see that it's a mix of everything. So it's a very nice code. Okay, but it's heavy. We have 70 lines here. But nevertheless, we have to explore all of these details. So let's move on. It says here Dynaform, and then I'm going to introduce here PHP Echo Dynaform, Dyntitle, and so on. I open the tag of form here, and I say table, center, some features here, and I introduce PHP. Rows. I'm going to transform, if you remember, the JSON data into an array. So I'm going to use this Dynaform and the Dynaform content. I'm going to use the Dynaform content and transform it. Then I say for each rows items 0 items. Okay, so I'm going to moving from here, and then I say as field this one, and then I say echo tr for I equals 0, I less equal count field -1. Because what is the purpose of this? I'm going to make an iteration of rows, and obviously this is going to be here and here and here, so it's the element of the element of the element of the array. Okay, and well, in here I'm going to use this decomposition, if we can call it like that, and each one is going to be a field. Each element is going to be a field. The field is going to be composed of many, if we can call it like that, many of features, characteristics. So I'm going to copy this tr, and I say for I equals 0, I less equal count, field -1. Okay, so my entire collection of fields, I'm going to use it, and then I'm going to apply this loop that you can find here. And I say isset file I, then mode field I mode. Okay, and here I'm going to ask if it is in view, I want to make it disabled. If not, leave it with no action, because in each field I'm going to ask the mode, and then I'm going to apply this action of disabling if it is in mode view for each one of the fields. After doing this checking of the mode, I'm going to move to this part that is switch, and I say field I type, and type I'm going to make this switch for title, subtitle, text, text area, drop down, radio button. So I say case title. If case is title, echo all of this. And notice that in some cases I am using the values that I have here. Field I label, for instance. Subtitle is going to make echo all of these, and then I say I'm going to introduce all these values. Break. Text is going to be different because it's going to copy the call span that you can find here. All of this is the call span. Then is going to introduce the label. Then this input tag for inputting information here. The text area is going to follow the same procedure here. Then you have the case for drop down here, and is call span field I call span. Then for each field I options as option. Okay, I am using the drop down. Inside the drop down, I know that the drop down has many options, so I'm going to make here a for each, and I say field I options as option, and I'm going to apply this echo for all the list of options that I have according to this iteration, and then I say break. The radio is going to follow the same way. I'm going to copy first the radio as it is, and then I'm going to apply a loop for each option that I have in the radio, and you're going to echo all of this. Now the div, class, radio, label, input, type, radio, value option, and value and mode. Okay, so I'm going to introduce that. Then I say echo, then td, break, case, submit, echo, td, align. Okay, so and the rest is just copying everything. The main thing that you have to understand, because this part is easy to explain if you notice And once that you have extracted the field, the thing that interests us, that is more important for us, is that in each case you are going to find these steps. Then you say, okay, execute rest, and you are going to execute this command. And within this command, you are going to find all of these applications and so on. So you are going to invest your time doing here the extraction of the URL, call it endpoint, and then you execute rest, and then you have this construction. The same happened here, and I say execute rest URL get array session access token. So I am bringing this universe of elements, and I'm going to treat in all of them carefully. I'm going to start suing all of them when I am dismantling for a while to obtain what interest is more for me, I mean the field, and then I'm going to swing each one of them using the parameters that I obtain from field. This can be the label, this can be the call span, this can be a plenty of options that you can see in Process Maker. Actually, this is not the typical thing that you have to do when you are in another language. This is obvious. Core client URL is a library for PHP. When we make the installation of Process Maker in our stack, and especially there is an extension called PHP, the number of the version, and then it says common, you are going to find there that it provides core. Otherwise, you have to upload and you have to install that extension, okay? But that is for core, okay? That is for core. And when I have this information in core, for me, it's possible to start using that, okay? When I have the core library available, it means that I can communicate to API services. I can use the protocol HTTP, and I can use methods of interaction with the endpoints, because the endpoints are gateways of access to some new information. So that's the point of using the URL. Okay, so that's the point about using this type of URL, as you can see here. So let me think about that. I'm just discussing about this topic that I have presented to you. So you have gone through the construction, first of all, of the index, then the header HTML, then the footer HTML. 3 files that are going to be important. Index is going to be the axis of rotation for entering the credentials, and then we are going to obtain an access token. We send the access token using the bearer schema, and then it means I want to consult this endpoint, this other endpoint, and so on. So I'm going to find a lot of information using that. Okay, yeah, that's the point. So, well, and that endpoint is going to bring me all this information. So actually, it's going to be a JSON format. If you remember in Postman, another application that makes possible the send of a request, I'm going to use that information, okay? But it's not treatable, so I need something more. I need to explore something more. And actually, in fact, that's the main thing about using Process Maker. I'm going to introduce that concept of JSON decoding. I'm going to make JSON into an array. And that's basically what we have done until now. recovering information and treating it in JSON. Basically that. Okay, lab. Going to move here and let's do this lab, okay? Dynamic form rendering. Can we do this lab? Hello, all of you. Dynamic form rendering. Hello. Okay, let's do that lab. Okay, dynamic form rendering. See ya. 15 minutes for the lab. 15 minutes. Explore it, please. It's not just copying and pasting. I want you to recognize. That's why that I give you 15 minutes. Hello? Hello? How are you? Fine? Okay. I'm going to continue with the next chapter. Okay. I continue with the next chapter. Well, if we look, our Dynaform is empty. There isn't anything in our Dynaform. And I'm going to introduce the codes that are necessary to populate our Dynaform. So I'm going to include what is called some variables, and well, you are going to see now the part of variables. So let's move on to this part. Okay, I'm going to enter something. Okay, I'm going to enter something. Okay. Okay, my objective is to populate the Dynaform, so I'm going to use now some code, and I need you to make me company for this purpose, because I'm going to introduce new lines here of code. And one of the lines that I need to introduce is actually is going to be, let me check where is the file. I need to introduce in Dynaform some lines to capture the variables. So I'm going to introduce that. Just bear me a moment. Okay, I'm going to introduce here something for the variable. Okay, and now if you notice here, I am introducing this endpoint for the variables. Then I'm going to introduce these variables here, and I'm going to execute REST for them. So let's begin introducing some values here. Okay. Okay. In text, in this part of text, there is a section, and after mode here, I'm going to introduce the following. Value is going to be equal to this. Okay. Okay, I'm going to introduce this. And then value is going to be this one. This one. Okay. We have mode and then value. Okay. Then the text area is going to be here. And after mode, in here, I'm going to introduce value. Okay. Then I'm going to move to, well, this is for text area. I introduce this value because I need to populate some of this information. Okay, so I need to populate that. I need to introduce also something here that I have forgotten because I need to introduce another code here. Just bear me a moment. And it is this one that I have forgotten in line 30. Just a moment. Okay, I am introducing these two lines, and the same thing, I'm going to ask if about the var name, if it's empty, and then I'm going to ask for the array keys. So I am preparing the values of the variables, and value is going to be now used. Okay, and the first case is going to be the text that actually I have introduced it here, then the text area here, and finally I move to the drop down. Well, it's not finally, but I'm going to move to the drop down. And in drop down, in this part of option, I'm going to introduce this. then it says here selected. Okay, value, option, okay, I'm going to introduce this value. Okay, and I say here this is going to be selected. If not, there is another possibility, and then we close this. Then I'm going to introduce this value as selected. Okay. The same I'm going to introduce here, but now I'm going to change the parameters for the radio button in the part of options. I'm going to introduce this. And this is going to be checked. Finally, in mode, I am going to introduce this as selected. Okay. Okay, so I save the file, and now let's make the rendering of this. I'm going to move to the local host and make the rendering. Just a moment, I'm going to introduce this. Okay, HTTP. Then the workspace workflow. Let me check here the client ID and the client secret. This is the client ID, then this is the client secret. It's possible to fail because it's a very fully detailed accommodation, the placing of all of these values. I'm going to log in and then open this. Okay, I'm going to check the file. Let me give it some time, okay? Okay, so just a moment. Just a moment, I'm going to be introducing the code that I require, okay? It's in line 30. Okay, I'm checking, just make me, I'm going to be checking the values for a while, just a moment, because maybe I have failed in one accommodation of the values, so I need to explore each one of them. Okay, just bear me a moment. It's a very fully detailed task because you have to be very, like, finding the needle among a very, among rocks or something like that is, um, you have to be very careful to add all this code, actually. Okay, a point was missing. A point. Okay, a point was missing here. Okay, I was verifying with the code of the lab, and a point was missing. So it's incredible that sometimes a detail can make you change the things. Okay, and now you can see Hegel dialectics. Dialectics at Hegel business address is going to be this one. Okay, yeah, time to work. The same 15 minutes, you are going to do this lab loading data from Process Maker, okay? 15 minutes for that. Hello. Okay, the lab is 15 minutes. Are you there? Okay, so see you in that time. Time's up. Okay, can we continue? Let's begin with the next part, and this is going to be the closure of this REST application. So I'm going to continue with something called the saving and routing of our application. So I'm going to make an introduction here. We now have these elements here. And I need to make the routing to make it look like a real application, because it doesn't look a real application by just doing that. So I'm going to introduce some modifications, and well, with that it means that I can continue. So I move now to the final part of this application. Let me show you. Okay. I need to introduce here something in Dynaform PHP. Well, Dynaform is just one of these files that is going to suffer a lot of things and transformations. So I'm going to introduce some code in a part here. So let me introduce that code. Okay. Going to introduce some code here. This one. Okay. And this is going to be an introduction of some elements, and if I'm going to pass all the form, I'm going to go back to a file called routecase.php. Actually, this file doesn't exist at all, but I need to create it. So I'm going to introduce that creation. And well, I have to add some important let me call it like that. I need to enter some code more here. First, I introduce those details in the form tag. Now I need to introduce something more here. And okay, I need to introduce in some of these parts. So the following code is going to be this one. In text, it's going to be this one. Then in text area, I'm going to put it here. Okay, and then I'm going to need it here. going to save it. Now let's create our file. Our file is going to be this one for route PHP. You know that we have named that file. Now I'm going to create it here. The new file is going to be this one, is route case PHP, route case.php. I'm going to open it, and there you have. I'm going to introduce all the code that I require. So that's, bear me a moment. Okay, just bear me a moment. Okay, I have this, and well, this is the last file. It's the route case, and it allows me to route my case actually. So that's the file that I'm using here. I'm going to introduce here this endpoint, and it tells me that it goes to variable. Then I execute REST for that reason. Then I'm going to introduce here the route case, and I'm going to execute REST for that reason using this access token. And finally use header, and in header I'm going to send this to list PHP. So when I move to my application here, I'm going to submit the details, and well, it tells me that there is an error. So let me check what is the error. Maybe it's here in Dynafirst. So just bear me a moment, okay? It's a fully detailed work, so it will require to see some details that I'm not watching right now. So I should move previously and see what is happening first in form. Okay. Okay. I think that I have finished this part. Now let me check this one. Okay, everything is correct. There shouldn't be any problem right now. Let me check. I have here in name var name. Okay. Then in here, since select is in this part. Okay. Okay. So maybe we can check for a while here, and it is in one of these parts. Okay, let me submit. Oh, active ID tells me, so I'm going to move backwards here. Maybe there is something here in the form. Action route case, okay. Route case PHP. That's fine. Maybe I need to rename the file. Okay. And I have route case app methods. Okay. Let me save it. This modification. Maybe I need something more to add there that I have forgotten. Maybe. Okay. Let's move on. I'm going to make the refresh. Maybe I need to go again to localhost. Okay, I'm going to introduce again the client ID, the client secret, and so on. So I'm going to introduce here in the localhost, it's this one. Then I have the client secret, this one. Then I have this as admin, then admin. Let's log in. Okay, let's open this. Let's submit the details. And there you have. It's working. It was just restarting everything again. And now it routes. Okay. Time to take a lap. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to do this lap. The last one, saving and data and routing cases. Can we continue with that lab? Hello? Hi. Can we continue with that lab? Okay, 15 minutes for that lab. I'm going to provide you also a link to it's a survey, okay? 15 minutes. Okay. Can we continue? Um, well, time to show the action of connectors. We didn't show the power on Thursday, so today is going to be an occasion to show all this power of the connectors. Let's begin with that. I'm going to start with the authentication configuration for Google services. So in that case, I'm going to make the host. For that reason, I'm going to introduce this and make it a host. I want to have an public IP address. So I'm going to make this. Okay. So let's begin with that. Okay, so let's introduce that. I'm going to move here, and if you remember in the admin section, you have this part of connectors. And actually this one, okay, let me restart again this part of plugins here. Okay. That disabled and enabled again. And I'm going to move here. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the configuration for authentication. So I'm going to introduce all of this. I'm going to create it, and it's going to be this one, Google Service Account. Okay, and in here I'm going to introduce, it doesn't look nice. I'm going to refresh everything again and go to connectors. Okay, now it works. Okay, if you remember, on Thursday I have shown you this type of authentication, and I tested it. Okay, you remember that here this is going to be a file that says process maker Gmail file JSON. Then this is going to be the URL for introducing the token. This is the grant type, the sign-in algorithm. In this scope, I'm going to enter all of these services. Then you have the bearer and authorization for schema. Okay, now it's time to play a little bit. So I'm going to create a process based on those facts. So I'm going to try it with the spreadsheets. Okay, I need to go to connectors, and I'm going to download. I need to download by clicking on this library, and I'm going to use the Google Sheets. This I can use because I have uploaded a new version of the plugin of PM connectors. On Thursday I have used an old version, and that's why I could not use the library. Okay, so in this case I have the library because I have the version of my connectors 1.2. Okay, so I insist a lot if you can have your plugins updated. I'm going to use two plugins, create user, and the other one is going to be create sheet, and the other one is update sheet, and I'm going to close it. In each one of them I need to make some configurations. and the first one is going to be the selection of this one. Okay, and the other one is this one. Okay, well, now I'm going to make going to import a process, so just bear me a moment. I'm going to import a process. Okay, I'm going to import. Okay, I'm going to download. Okay. Because I have designed the process previously, I'm downloading from this exercise. So I'm going to introduce right now in my server. I'm going to import it here and click on here and enter. I'm going to upload it. Yeah, I'm going to create a new ID for this process. Okay, so I have the process. What does this do? I'm going to enter the details of a spreadsheet, and it is actually this task. Then with that information, I'm going to process, and with this service task that includes a service API to Google, I'm going to create that spreadsheet with the details that are given here. After that, I'm going to enter some values here, and in this part, actually in this enter values to be exported, I'm going to use a grid, and in this grid I'm going to write from the grid. I'm going to write in a spreadsheet. So I'm going to start running that. And for that occasion, I need to click here and it's going to be this administration. the same as here. I'm going to introduce here the properties. I'm going to configure the service task. This is going to be Google Sheets. Then I have a connector and it's going to be the create sheet. Okay. And then when that happens, I'm going to use this configuration because actually this authentication is going to have this service. Okay. Then after that, I'm going to introduce in override. I'm going to introduce these parameters. Sub, and then I say, well, this is going to be my email, okay? Let me remind you that this email is part of the domain. It means that when you acquire the services of Google, you have to think in the domain, and the domain actually is going to include some of these emails. And in this case, my email is part of the domain, and this domain has this JSON file that allows me the authentication to the Google API services. That's why that I include this parameter. Okay, and in here I'm going to add some things. Okay, I need to add okay, I need to add that JSON body, and then I use the response configuration, and it is going to be this one. Okay, so if that happens, let me remind you that the prefix that we have here is for object format data. So I'm entering that value, and I'm going to test it with whatever. No, it can be any name. So let me do it for FF. It's a test. I click on test, and if it's 200, it means that actually I'm doing it well. I have this file, this spreadsheet with this name. I'm going to close it, okay, and save it. Configuration is done. I'm going to move to another configuration here, and it's going to be export values, and I click on properties. Then I click on Google Sheets here and update sheet. Okay, and this is going to be Google Service Account. I need to enter now two values. This one is going to be the value input option. So I'm going to enter this value input option. And why I have to name it as this way? In the literature of the Google API services, we are going to find this type of query parameters, override parameters, path parameters. So you have to check each one of them. And in this case, one of them is value input option. I'm going to write values in my Google spreadsheet. So I need this, and I'm going to make it row. Because if I'm going to write a date, for instance, I don't want this date to be changed. I want to keep its format. That's why that I use this type of value, this query parameter. It's row. The other one is going to be an override parameter, and this one is my email. And actually, you want to contact me, this is my email, okay? Then I need to add some path parameters, and the first one is the spreadsheet ID, and I'm going to introduce this one. It's going to be, maybe I can copy from here to avoid some. This one, I'm going to move it here. And then I need to use a range. Okay. I have included this one, the range that you can see here. Finally, I'm going to include something more, and is going to be this one. I'm going to concatenate values with a trigger. I'm going to show you that. Okay. This value, new budget list, okay, comes from a trigger. Okay, first of all, let's finish this part. I'm going to finish the response configuration here, and it is going to be values exported, and there you have. Okay, this new budget list comes from here. Comes from here, from this type of trigger, because if you remember, in Google you need to send also a JSON body. So I constructed as this way by using this trigger, and actually by doing that I'm going to have a JSON body, okay, and this JSON body is going to be sent in this service task. New budget list, okay, and then the values exported. Given these facts, I'm going to save it, and there you have, all is configured. I'm going to click on here and make it debugger, okay, that's fine. And let's start playing with the case. I'm going to click on new case, and here, create and populate a Google spreadsheet, enter spreadsheet details. I'm going to double click here, and well, I'm going to create and say, okay, I want a budget list. The responsible is going to be count, and the date is going to be this one. I submit the value, Okay, and you can see this new title. Okay, it identified the new title, it concatenated. I'm going to click here, and then it routes me to the service task. Actually, I'm going to be here. Okay, so I click on continue, and actually now my Google Sheet has been created. I'm going to continue. Okay, so I need to reopen the case. And in here, I'm going to open that Google spreadsheet. But it says, tonight to change the account. Okay. Just a moment, please. I'm going to, well, it's requiring me to have to assign. Okay, let me check the part of the configuration. It's like sometimes you have to be very fully detailed with this type of work. So in this case, I'm going to re-enter everything. And now let's see if that it's recognized. It's maybe because I'm going to choose it directly from here. It has prevented me to see that, so I'm going to enter directly from the drive this. Just let me see the name of the file. Okay, it's this one. I apologizes. It says not to list. Okay, let me again create a case. It's more a type of Okay, just bear me a moment. I'm going to make a change here, okay? because it's not still working. um, uh, and it's because of just something. Maybe it's because I introduced it with so I'm going to copy and paste directly. Okay, so I'm going to re-enter here. Okay, I'm going to save it. Sometimes a comma, something like that, makes a huge difference. So that's why that I need to pay attention a lot. Okay, um, let me go here and see what is happening. Okay, I'm going to move it here and write again. It's going to be budget list. Okay, then I'm going to introduce it done here, and it's going to be this date. Okay, let me create that file. That's fine. Then double click here. Okay, no, it's something with Google. Something that I cannot avoid it. Okay, it's something with Google. Okay, but the point is that it creates a file. It creates a file, but honestly, I'm not being able to get access to that file, and I think that it's because of Google and maybe because I'm in another network. I don't know. Okay. Um, about the timer event, well, I have seen questions about the timer event. Let me show you here. Time event is going to schedule your time. It's a time-based schedule work. Okay. And for instance, if you have an activity, this activity can be, let's make it clear. If you need your activity to work with a very periodic function, for instance, you are going to change the rate exchange between dollars and baht, and you have to make it daily, you can start a case by actually using a start timer event, and then you use this task. And then you program here that this is going to be activated daily from specific dates. Okay? Do you have any question for this? Obviously, this requires a time-based schedule and so on. Okay. I think that with that I have answered your questions. Did you understand everything that I said until now? Is everything okay? Yeah. Okay, I think everything is okay. Now, tells me. Well, you know, I have seen a question that says me, can you show me the start timer event and the result of this function? Right now, I don't have an example, but you can go to Webinars on Demand on our website. Just write me, I'm going to provide you that information. And we have prepared a webinar for that case, timer events and email events. So if you need more information about that, just tell me and I'm going to send that information and you can verify that part of timer events, okay? Because actually in this server I don't have examples for timer events, but I can provide it if you write me to my email. Okay, so we have gone through the part of REST. Unfortunately, again, this is a problem with Google. The access is denied, so I wish that you could have seen that part of entering the data and watching how it works. And actually, on Thursday, I have shown you the video where it does show the Google spreadsheet, okay? So I think that it has some restrictions, if we can call it like that. Um, do you have any question? Is it clear? No questions at all? Okay. Is everything clear? Um, I have a question of Mardolin Longasa. It tells me, is it possible in Process Maker to confirm the approval incorporate email without logging in Process Maker? There is a plugin called Actions by Email, and that's exactly that. It's a plugin where you can work directly from the email and you don't need to log in Process Maker. So you can check that. There is a plugin about that topic, Actions by Email. Yes, we can do it. Another question? Um, I have a question that says, what is the function when I want to start automatic via email? Please help. Um, yeah, let me answer you. There are many ways that you can start a process in Process Maker. One of them could be the use of a web entry. Okay. Another one is not logging in Process Maker, but maybe you can make some use of REST if you need to. So there are many resources, but actually you're not going to start directly from your email a case, but you can invent something like that. You can uh, use the tools of Process Maker to find your solution. Okay. Mm, yeah, it will be like that. Okay, you really need to log in, or you can make the application through REST and then modify according to your needs. It's not something easier to make it. It requires more work. Dan Stoffman asks me, for a timer event, can a process maker process execute on a server? Yes, and actually the cron tab is going to make it automatically if you program. In the literature, you're going to see that. Mardolin Longasa. Is there any documentation for the action email plugin in the wiki? I'm going to show you. It's just searching information here. and you're going to find here actions by email. This is the actions by email, okay? So you can search on the wiki page. Now, in your case, done. You search directly and you're going to find instructions for using the execute cron scripts for cron tabs. Well, this is for an older version. And then you can program setting the time zone and making modifications for that. Okay? Okay, I think that with that I finished this developer course. I'm so sorry with the part of the Google connectors, okay? Because as you have seen in another training, it did work, but I don't know what happened with this server. Well, it has been a pleasure to give you this class, and see you for the test. For the test, you have to do applying. Okay? Bye. Okay, bye bye. Okay, thanks. Bye bye. Bye.